What is up, lover researchers? It's Kevin. Welcome back to Method Mondays, a series where I talk about different UX research methods and how to conduct them. Today, we're talking about surveys. Surveys are an essential part of every UX researcher's toolkit, but they're super easy to mess up. So keep watching so you know how to avoid some of these mistakes. But before I begin, in the spirit of talking about surveys, I created my own survey, which I link in the description below. I would appreciate if you went and filled it out. This survey is to get your feedback, your ideas, anything you want to share with me. We've just reached 1,000 subscribers, so I know there's YouTube community posts, but I'm such an old school researcher, I decided to use the regular survey method. So it would mean a lot if you fill it out and gave me your thoughts. This channel is for you. I'm making these videos for you, so tell me how I can make it better for you. Thank you. And who knows, if I get enough data, I'll analyze it and present it in the next video. So surveys. There are entire classes dedicated to survey and questionnaire design. Entire classes. My video is just the quick and dirty of it. So I encourage you to do some more research on surveys. I'm going to link a couple of articles in the description below, and I encourage you to read them. So what is it? Surveys are more on the quantitative side and are used to gather self-report data about your users. You can use it to see what people are saying, how people feel about your content or product, and it's a chance for you to gather any ideas that they have or suggestions, feedback from your users. Now, surveys can be sent out or they can be triggered. You know those websites where it pops up saying, do you have a few minutes to fill in a couple of questions? That's called an intercept survey. So you can use that when your user has taken an action and you want to learn more about it. That's one way you can do surveys. So surveys, as I mentioned before, they're hard to get right. Even I ask for feedback from other researchers to take a look before I send it out because it's just hard. It's always good to get some other people's feedback as well. Now, what kind of questions are there? So let's go through an example here. How would you rate the quality of 0 to UX videos and its value? And the responses are ill yuck poop face emoji. Background music is too cringy, which is legit feedback that I've gotten before. They aight, or best videos ever! Is this a good survey question? No, it's a funny one, but it's a terrible survey question with terrible response options. Let me explain why. Let's dissect this question, shall we? But first, let's identify what kind of question it is. Is this an open-ended or closed-ended question? So that's the first question I have for you. And I deliberately made this a bad question to show you that there are actually two questions here. Two questions in one is called a double-barreled question. So the two questions here are, how would you rate the quality and how would you rate the value? Don't do this. You should split these into two questions because if you got a response, you don't know whether the person was responding to the quality part of your question or the value part of your question. Anyway, this is an example of a closed-ended question. Ones where you can only pick one answer. Examples could be yes or no questions, like do you have a dog? Yeah. When's your birthday? February 30th. So questions where you only have one response. In this example, we have 4 response options. And these are in the form of a Likert scale. It is pronounced Likert according to the guy himself, not Likert as I used to say. And in this instance, this response options are bipolar. This is a bipolar scale. We can tell because there are 2 positive responses and 2 negative responses. Essentially, it means there are 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. If you have a bipolar scale, try to have an odd number of responses. Like in this case, there's 4, but have 5 where the middle one is a neutral option. The other type of scale is called a unipolar scale. Unipolar is an all or nothing. So for example, you could be either extremely sexy or not at all. But you can't be unsexy? You know what I mean? However, you can manipulate the question in such a way that you can define your own bipolar options. For example, I don't know what the opposite of sexy is, but let's assume it's just ugly, right? So now I can phrase the question as, how sexy or ugly do you think SpongeBob is? Now I've defined those options, and now I can have the bipolar scale. So that's not the best practice. You want to keep it as simple as possible and be neutral as possible. And the point I'm trying to get across is that you have a lot of power here. You can't necessarily control how your respondents will answer, but you can control what they can answer. And so inherently, we as a researcher, when we design these survey questions, we are putting our own bias and variance into the questions themselves. So be mindful of that, be as neutral as possible. And sometimes you might want to include an other option. So like at the end, if none of your options fit for your respondents, include other, please specify, or none of the above, something like that. All right, so having learned all this, let's fix this question up. How would you rate the quality of 0 to UX videos and its value? So let's fix it. Let's remove the second part of the question. Let's remove the double barrel part of it. Overall, how would you rate the quality of 0 to UX content? Now our response options, as funny as they are, it's not going to be very valid. So let's change it to something more standard. So new options could be very poor, below average, neutral, above average, excellent. So there you go. I think that's a fair question if I want overall feedback on the quality. So that's an example of a closed-ended question. Here's an example of an open-ended question. Why do you watch 0 to UX videos? It's open-ended because there's not one answer that you can choose. These are useful when you want to dig in and probe, but they also have a lower response rate. So keep in mind, in a survey, don't have all open-ended questions. Use them sparingly to ask when you want to probe after closed-ended questions. Another tip I have is to really keep it short and simple. Story time, actually, because one time I was filling out a screener from a company, which will not be named, but this company was asking for me to fill in this 20-minute screener for free. It was a screener to see if you qualify for the actual study. But as I was filling it out, I realized, wow, these are a lot of open-ended questions. This is like a full-on interview, qualitative interviews crammed into a survey. But they just called it a screener so they didn't have to pay you. I thought, wow, that's unethical. So don't ever do that. If you have that many questions, it shouldn't be in a survey form. And if you do send out a survey, at least pay them. The takeaway here is the longer your survey, the fewer responses you're gonna get. So pick the questions that you really want and will get the most value out of. I've gone through a couple of mistakes, but there are some other things that you should consider, such as sensitive questions and cross-cultural ones. For example, do you smoke crack? What's your annual income? How much sex have you had? Whoa, those are intrusive questions. And what if someone hacked your survey and disclosed all those answers out with the person's name attached to it? That's not good. These are highly sensitive questions, and you'll encounter non-response bias, which is people just not answering them because they are taboo. Other examples include, who do you vote for? Discrimination questions. In this case, you might get people who want to appear better to you in the survey and look less bad, so it won't be really representative of their true self. So there's inherent measurement bias. And of course, we mentioned some of this before, there are other mistakes such as leading questions, question order, priming. I'll link other articles for you to take a look at on describing common survey mistakes and what to avoid. All right, Kevin, I think I have the idea of how to do a survey, but how do I actually conduct one? What tools should I use? So there's quite a few common ones out there. Qualtrics is one of my favorites. I don't know if it's free. You'd have to double check, but it is a powerful tool. You can do a lot of logic, randomization, things like that. There's other tools such as SurveyMonkey, does something similar. And of course, the form that I use for my survey, which if you clicked into it to take it, is trusty old Google Forms. It's not as robust, but it does the job and it's free. Just pick one that fits your needs and go out there and start collecting data. So that's the rundown on the survey method for UX research. I linked down below a lot of articles for your reading, which will be really helpful. Remember, surveys are a powerful tool, but they're easy to mess up. So really do your due diligence and read up on it. And again, I have a survey for you to fill out. I'd really appreciate to get your feedback because I want to hear from you. This channel is made for you, so give me your ideas, go all out. And if you don't want to fill it out, at least take a look at it and see what kind of questions I'm asking, how I'm phrasing things, what types of questions, and see if you can identify the different things that I talked about in this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you found it helpful, smash that like button and subscribe. I make all things UX research related to help you become the most badass UX leader. Mad love. Peace.